real slow tonight.
Shiny head.
It
Yeah, my shiny head.
Huh?
My shiny head.
showing up.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, we're good. And Mr. Belay, your committee's up first if you're okay.
Not bad.
Yeah, planning and zoning.
What's that again?
Planning and zoning is up first if you're okay.
Oh, I don't have my sheets. Planning and zoning.
Huh?
Planning and zoning. That's up
You're
first.
not on that today.
Yeah, am I on today,
Well,
Steve?
Yeah, but yeah, because the first meetings were last Thursday because you guys moved them up.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I emailed it to you, but there's really not a whole lot on your agenda if you want to just, of course, you won't have the other ones, I guess. I did email them to you.
Yes, oh. All right. If you want, I can print the copies out. If you want to skip me and come back to me, I can do that.
I didn't see any of those copies.
No, I didn't either.
Did you send them?
Well, I didn't want to have Dawn hanging on there for
No,
for a
no.
while,
Okay.
so.
Go ahead. Go ahead with Don. Go ahead with Don.
All right. So planning and zoning, I don't really have anything other than just reminders, and there's no updates. So you can move on to Dawn Branzel.
All right, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay, I don't have anything of importance to report tonight, but I do have a question. Can you tell me when the new tree and shrub specs will be finalized? Hello?
The new what? Say again.
Can you tell me when the new tree and shrub specs will be finalized?
I'm not sure what you mean, Dawn.
Let me jump in
the
here.
RFP?
Yeah, the RFP.
Yeah, the RFP.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that the last meeting, and Mr. Morris has all the information. I'm not sure when that would be ready to go, though.
Well, if you're not making any changes in it, I mean, it can get advertised like right away. I thought you said you wanted to have Jack check it, and I didn't know if you wanted to have any other changes. So
Yeah. Other than what I sent you today, that as far as I'm concerned, it's
done. Okay.
yes.
All right. So we don't need to vote on that. Just get it advertised, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And is it okay just to advertise where we always do, or do you want a separate ad in a bigger paper like the Post-Gazette?
Post-Gazette is on strike.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're still taking ads, and I need to know what you folks want to do. No preference?
Can we use the Trib?
Yeah, I guess we could.
I don't feel comfortable crossing the picket line when the workers are on strike.
Okay, well, I'll figure something out.
I mean, wouldn't we just send it to the usual folks and advertise it as usual?
Okay.
That would include the press, correct, Steve?
Well, no, it would include Valley Mirror and then maybe the Trib, but then you can send out to all the companies we really usually deal with, or that we have had in the past send us bids.
Okay.
I mean, I have that. We can talk about it tomorrow, Dawn.
All right, that's fine.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Well, since I don't have my paperwork with me, is there any other thing to report for the committee?
I didn't have anything else, Bill.
Okay. All right, then we can pass on.
Okay. Give me a second here. Okay, Mr. Marco, I'm okay with Finance Committee.
Okay, well, if you will proceed to the manager's report, please.
Okay. I'm gonna share my screen and I have the first couple things here summarized in PowerPoint. So hopefully, whoops. Let's see. There we go. Can everybody see my title page, Finance Committee?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to go through three different things here. Now, the detail is on your agenda items. And you also got some handouts related to this, but I'll refer to them as we go. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the cash flow update. Yeah, again, it's low entering December, and lowest it's been for the last few years, but there's some explanation I have to give you on this. So don't get nervous about it necessarily. There may be a number of different adjustments that have caused this, and I'm going to show you that too. I think part of the problem that I'm having the last couple of cash flow statements is that my cash flows don't interact directly with AccuFund, and so they don't show changes, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I just look at cash flow just like I normally do, the red line is our cash flow through November, and it's showing a negative $190,000. But I decided to take a look and compare it with something else to see how much might have changed over the year. And by that I mean, whenever I show you the monthly statement that's attached to this chart,
Mhm.
I'm not able to go back to, let's say, June, and if adjustments were made either by the auditor or because the treasurer found that something was a mistake or we added something or what have you, my cash flow doesn't show that update. So that's one reason why in the previous slide I suggested we might want to take a look at seeing if our current accounting system provides us with some kind of cash flow or cash management. In the past, they haven't, and we did not purchase that for the current system if they have it. So if we had something with the current system, that would mean that everything would automatically update throughout the year, and you wouldn't end up with this problem that I'm seeing here, because as I mentioned last month, October showed a negative $54,000, and I told you I didn't understand that because it didn't seem like it was correct based on how September and the previous months were.
Exactly.
So
And I've
what
been asking about
what-
that for months.
What?
And
I'm
I have
sorry?
been asking about that for months.
Okay. All right. So what I did was I took the monthly spreadsheet statement that I give you for cash flow, and I totaled up all the months, January through November in this, in this column right here. Okay. That's the total that I had. And then I compared it with what was actually year to date in the budget. And if you can see from this third column, there is quite a difference in some of these numbers, which tells me that there were some changes throughout the year. It might have been something that just happened last month, or it might have been something that happened 5 months ago. Some adjustment that was made either by the auditor, for example, or in our system, because we noticed, for example, that we should have taken money from here, but we didn't. We took it from another place and we had to correct that. Allison and I are always checking and talking about those kind of things. So for the revenues, this first chart on the left shows that there are $255,000 in revenue, plus in revenue that must have changed over the year. Okay. And the second chart on the right does the same thing with expenditures. I totaled the January through November numbers in my cash flow, and then I looked at the budget year-to-date numbers. And you can see again that they do not match. These were approximately how many changes that were made total during the year as adjustments, again, auditor or what have you. If you look at that, it shows you that there were $121,000 more in revenue changes than there were in expenditure changes, which is again a surplus now. So I'm not trusting the cash flow I'm using for this year because of what happened in the last couple of months. I don't exactly understand it because in previous years it worked out. But for some reason this year we had more changes, and it might have been because there were a number of things where we're using money from the building fund, for example, or moving money from corrective action back and forth, or moving money from capital back and forth, etc. And that could have been some of the reason for it. So I don't think that this chart is reflective of what our actual cash flow is. And I'm probably not even going to show much of cash flow in my budget report when I finally do print the budget because of that. Now, does everybody understand what I'm saying, or does anybody have any questions about this? Let me pause for a moment here.
Well, Steve-
I have a question, Steve.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Patty, did you have a question first?
Go ahead, Frank, go ahead.
So just to be clear on the cash flow, when you say you're not trusting it, it means that is it showing?
I'm not trusting my chart.
Okay,
I trust AccuFund, and AccuFund is the year-to-date numbers in the middle. My chart was, again, we didn't have any way of doing cash flow in any of the accounting systems since I've been here. So I found one about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago online on Excel, and that's the one I started using for us, this format. And up until this year and maybe even last year, it seemed like it was fine. But I just suspect the way November went and then now December, after having such a positive cash flow through October, that there's something that I'm missing in that numbers that in the format that I'm using for cash, which is totally unrelated again to our AccuFund accounting system. It's just me taking numbers out of that system and plugging them into a chart.
okay, I'm following now.
All right, so I just want to be clear, Steve, that means that if you look at the AccuSure funding tabulations, we are not in a 900 and something deficit. Is that correct?
109,000. I don't think so.
According
No.
to what you, according
I
to
don't
what
think
you
so.
have.
I'm not saying there
I
won't
mean,
be a deficit.
190,000. According
Right.
to the numbers that you have here, that you got from the actual accounting rather than from the spreadsheet, you think we're not so much in arrears as that. Is that correct?
It would either be much less than that or would be a positive.
It'd be a deposit. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you won't end this year with negative numbers, but I mean, it's still possible. But I don't trust the cash flow in that high $190,000 deficit that it's showing.
Okay.
I honestly don't. I've asked Allison to investigate with AccuFund
Yeah.
to see if we can get some other program, and I have to find out from them for sure and what the cost would be. But a lot of these, unless you buy a really, really sophisticated financial system for municipalities, like we did have actually back when I started in 2000, something called Munis. Most of them don't have all these different packages. The problem with Munis was it was intended for a huge municipality and a municipality that could afford to buy everything separately, all these different packages that could be used to monitor finances. And Forest Hills is just not that big to have something like that. So that's why we got out of that.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? So Again, I may show you my cash flow in January just to show it to you so you can see, but I'd like to see about finding a better way of doing this, especially for somebody coming in new after I leave. So I am going to investigate that. I'll let you know. So I think Mr. Watkins has a question.
Mr. Morris, can you give me an estimate on when you think you may have some numbers that you feel comfortable with?
I think right now, looking at the middle and the third column, I feel comfortable with those numbers, which show probably $120,000 plus surplus.
And that's based on your year-to-date data compared to
Year-to-date through November. Now, again, December could have a lot of bills and that could end up becoming a negative number, but you know, I mean, that's what I would go with right now, those two columns.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, let me move on to the fee resolution then. I gave you a draft with the idea, of course, being that you're going to pass a new fee resolution in December. And we do this to put everything in one place as much as possible. Reason being, in the past, we struggled with trying to find fees of various kinds. And we decided, after talking with the solicitor, he and I decided it made more sense to put everything in one big resolution so that we know where everything is. And so when changes are made, they should be made to that resolution. So the goal tonight is to let you take a look at the draft and maybe approve it on the 13th. First thing is, the engineer did update fees, and really they're the same fees he gave us when he applied for the job. It's just that the old resolution had Glenn engineering fees, so the new resolution represents LSSE fees. I put them in there too because it's possible that somebody may need to use our engineer for a planning and zoning issue or what have you. It's the same thing with the solicitor, and they should know what our costs are. So I show that on the first couple pages of the resolution. And then the changes that were made come starting on page 9 under section 5, emergency alarms. I was asked to change that whenever a false alarm goes out. And I honestly don't remember if this came out of public safety or out of Chief Williams' presentation. But in any case, he had me change the number of false alarms when you would have no charge. That's went from 3 to 2. And then the third false alarm would be $25. This, of course, mainly for businesses. The fourth would be $50, and then the additional one stays the same. So we did make that change in section 5 on page 9. Okay. Everybody okay so far?
I do have some comments on the engineer's costs. I'd like to note that they are considerably higher than what we had been paying for Glen Engineering. Obviously, we're getting a different level of service altogether, but I really wish you could discuss with them a little bit. It seems like a tremendous amount of personnel assigned. I mean, I believe they have 31 people assigned to us as they put in their scope. And as they have a request for renewing their service agreement, I wondered if we can negotiate with them somewhat of a reduction in the number of personnel that they're assigning to our service. I don't think it requires a team of 31 people to serve the needs of our borough. And they have 31 people listed. They are billing them. I've seen bills because I look at them when they come through. For some projects, they've billed 4 or 5 people for something that I don't think requires that level of staff support. So if you could please have a discussion with them in the course of your contract renewal, I would appreciate a chance to do that as we are looking at a tighter budget. I think it would behoove you to have that discussion with LSSC as you go forward, if you choose to keep them for next year. Ms. Martin, you have a hand up.
Yes, thank you, Vice President DeMarco. I just wanted to comment that on that pricing for the engineering staff for all we know,
We're all
Glen
right.
Engineering wasn't being as transparent as LSSE is. And I don't mean in a sneaky way. I just mean they weren't as detail oriented as LSSE is.
True.
I like their service so far, and we haven't been steered wrong. Thank you.
Angelo?
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that, and you get what you pay for. I think we've gotten considerably better service in the short time that
I agree.
LSSE has been working for us, and I believe getting it done right the first time is more important than paying a lower cost.
You just understand it is a considerable expense, so we have not budgeted in last year's budget this level of engineering service. Now, for next year's, you obviously have incorporated into the costs of the various services, so maybe it won't be such a jar, but it might be worth having a little talk with them about the staffing that they do, just for your own understanding. That's all I have on that. Mr. Morris, you can proceed, unless
Okay,
anyone else has a comment. Okay.
The next set of changes are on page 18 under section 8 and 18. Again, these are all recommended by staff or members of council who've given it to me. So none of these necessarily are set in stone if you want to make any of these changes. Municipal lien letters went up $5. Municipal tax verification letters, the same thing, went up $5, and DIE certifications also up $5. And the fee for checks that are returned went up $5. And we've been talking with staff, and actually my experience here, I believe all those are should go up. The tax verification letter, I'm not sure how the new tax collector and associates will handle that as far as tax liens. They may charge something different if we go to a company like Jordan, which I think that they're talking about doing. So that may be something that we'll have to change, but I think it makes sense to show those increases. And so that's why I have that here. My next one is on page 19, and that's where I added the fuel pump usage fee per gallon. We had suggested at 50 cents, but after talking with Jimmy, he was concerned about raising the fee by doubling it. And he recommended, and he may have talked to Mr. Watkins already, I don't know. He had recommended just going up 5 or 10 cents. Mr. Watkins, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Yes, I had extensive conversations with Jimmy on this, and currently we are charging roughly $3.70 for gas. No, I'm sorry, that's for diesel, and probably $2.75 for gas. And his concerns were that if we raise it more than 10 cents, that not a lot, but a fair number of people would leave and start to buy gas on their own. So this is new information that he's given us on this issue. I think that if we do raise it 10 cents, that would give us enough to help pay for the future improvements that we need to make with the new pump and the new card service, the new card software that we'll have to get. So with the revelation of this new information, I would be inclined to recommend a 10 cent increase.
Ms. Martin?
Mr. Watkins, would you
Yes, ma'am.
settle for in the middle and make it 25 cents? I think 10 cents is too low.
I have to go along with what Mr. Thielacker recommends. I don't know how much of an exodus a 25-cent increase would cost.
25 cents is 50 cents, what's there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
does
but
that mean
it's
10
the-
cents
it's-
is 20 cents?
No, 10
No.
cents would be 35 cents. It's 25 cents right now.
Oh, I get you. Okay, thank you.
So we would be going, what we're talking about is going from, right now we have a 25% surcharge. We'd be talking about going to 35 cents versus 50 cents. So, like one of the issues is that we've got a 3,000 gallon tank for diesel fuel. And he wants to keep that fuel relatively fresh so it doesn't go stale and doesn't cause engine problems. And if we raise the fee too much and people leave and go someplace else, then we're going to have thousands of gallons of diesel fuel that could just sit there and go stale, and it would sort of defeat the purpose. With the new information that I've been given, I think it's sort of like when we lowered the price for the pool. It seemed like we would lose revenue, but we actually made more revenue by people buying more to concession stands. So I know I was a major advocate for raising this fee even more, but this is new information.
Mr.
So
No, Mr. Watkins, you were still talking.
I would recommend 10 cents, 15 cents at most, at the absolute most, because Mr. Thielacker talked about 5 to 10 cents, maybe 5 cents this year, 5 cents next year. And if necessary, maybe we could do another 5 cents the year after that.
Okay. I'm sorry. Now, Mr. Bayoki.
Yes. Before we finalize this, I would like to know what is the total charge right now per gallon? And what would users have to pay if they were going to a commercial or a regular pump to pay? Would they be paying the same amount and just doing the paperwork? I believe it's just the paperwork is what is driving them to use our pump. That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct, but the paperwork is a one-time issue. It is not paperwork that they would have to fill out each and every time they buy gas. So right now, our cost for diesel is $3.45. Our cost for gas is $2.49. You can add 25 cents to that and get the total for each of those. I saw on the news where Pittsburgh's price for gas is $3.60, but there are places where you can get gas like the Walmart for probably $3.40, maybe even $3.35.
Does our price for gas and diesel fluctuate as the market fluctuates, Steve, or do we pay it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we don't pay it because it fluctuates as it.
We
Yeah,
ride on the market, and then our fee is on top of that.
right. Anybody
But
else?
I don't think it's going to fluctuate as often because, such as with the diesel, we've got a 3,000 gallon tank for diesel gasoline. So it's going to take a while to go
We
through
buy
the
a wholesale. We buy at wholesale. So
yes, we buy it without the taxes.
right.
The advantage to other communities is they find it either closer, more convenient. They don't have to do the paperwork, and there is a little bit of savings on gas because we're not paying tax. So for them to buy it from us, they're saving automatically. And so when we charge them 25 cents a gallon, they're still saving some money because of the high taxes that are on there. So otherwise they'd have to get a refund of the taxes every year by filling out paperwork once a year. That's pretty much how it works.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Are we settled on accepting the numbers that Mr. Morris has, or do you want to change that again?
Well, I think we said 10 cents or either that or do 5 cents a year for the next couple of years. Either
I
one.
think we settled on 10 cents. Is that right?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Good.
Okay, no objection. So I'll make that number then on this, in the resolution will say 35 cents, not 50.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, moving on. I asked building inspection underwriters about changes, but they didn't have any changes for uniform construction code fees. We do receive 20% of their fees. Don't forget too that a lot of the fees that are charged for them are go directly to them too. So there were no changes in those as well. Now the biggest changes came in parks and recreation from pages 19 to 26. And the significant changes there include, and I showed that, I showed the amendment that you had as a change. So the significant changes included all the changes that were made in that amendment from a few months back. Pool and Westinghouse Lodge rental changes that were recommended by either a member of council, by a committee, or by Mr. Reamer. Pool admission fees, same thing. Tennis court use, same thing. Shelter rental fees, same recommendation, same source for recommendation. I didn't spell all these things out in detail because there's so much in here that I thought you could just read it on your own and hopefully would be able to see it by looking at the handout that I had given you, the draft. Mr. Baoki?
Yes, sorry, on the previous slide, you said there were no recommendations. I was looking at the fees and it seems to me that the fees that we're charging are considerably low. The penalties are extremely low. It's not even a slap on the wrist for some of these things. We're losing money because we're being charged $45 an hour for the inspectors to go out to do some work that they charge $20 for. So I think those need to be in line. Their hourly rate and the fees themselves need to be increased. So their rate needs to be included in there, and the fees that we're charging need to be increased, in my opinion.
May I speak to that, Mr. Morris? I looked at the average building inspection fees in the city of Pittsburgh, and they are about 4 times higher than ours. And the national averages are also considerably higher than ours. I think at a minimum, we need to adjust those upwards to capture our costs for the services of our inspectors.
Okay,
And I'm not sure the costs cover that at this time.
let me say that you would have to then these fees from building inspection underwriters can't come from what was negotiated by council years ago. So I'm not saying that they would say no to this, but you would have to negotiate that with them or discuss that with them. They were the ones who had originally agreed to those fees with council.
And when
I
were
don't
they
remember
last
who
adjusted? When were they last adjusted?
years ago.
Well,
So,
perhaps
but
we need to,
that, yeah, I mean, it's,
perhaps we need to revisit this and hire building inspection, contract and costs associated with that. Ms. Martin, you have your hand up on this issue.
I wanted to agree with what you just said, as well as Mr. Bioki. We really need to get our fees in line with what our expenses are.
Yeah, I think given the timing at this point, perhaps it might be appropriate to note that this is a provisional fee resolution for construction costs, and then have that discussion with our underwriter, with our inspectors, and determine what a cost of those services actually is, and how we can adjust the fees to reflect the time and the actual cost of that service, because that's an area where we're paying out more than we're receiving in these areas. And we are also considerably out of line with the national averages, as I said.
okay, so just let me know how and when you want to meet with the people who are in charge of building inspection underwriters, and they could either come to a committee or meet with you separately. And that committee that would do that would either be ops and policy or planning and zoning, probably. So if you're going to do it by committee, so let me know how you want to approach it. In the meantime, I will not make any changes until you've had a chance to talk to them. And the resolution that I have here is what I'm going to have
Yeah,
on the
and
agenda.
we can
because-
revisit the fee resolution to amend it, at
Yeah.
a later date if
Yes.
that's necessary. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have some fees established though, and I
Yeah.
don't want to just eliminate them. So okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on those changes, especially the changes also for recreation and parks? Was everybody okay with the things that you saw in there?
Do you have any
Okay.
questions, comments?
I'm sorry.
I'm
Oh.
just asking if anyone had questions or comments.
Okay, then the last section I have in fees is under section 22, trash and recycling. I had suggested to you that I thought the annual fee increase should go up $10, and I still think that makes sense. That just is a slightly above break even for what we're paying out to waste management, along with estimated costs for paper, mailing, employee costs, etc. That would what I estimate would cover those things. So that would be in this fee resolution as well. Any questions about that?
I see no hands up
Well,
on
that's
that.
that's all I have for the fee resolution. Then I'm going to move on to the budget if you don't have
Okay,
any.
Steve, is the sewer fee going to be in a separate resolution?
Sewer fee has to be in an ordinance, and you have to
Okay.
talk to the engineer about that.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so let me move on to the budget. The budget is still balanced without a tax increase. But there are a couple of minor changes. Let me explain why and what I'm recommending for a final budget approval for December 13th. First, I did give you both just the general fund budget, and I'll explain that as we go along as to why. And I thought I'd given you the one that I had the actual through November, and I think I mistakenly gave you the one where I had the actual number column through the end of October. I'm sorry
Yes.
about that. Mine is through November, and I thought I had printed the right one. The other numbers are all correct. It's just that one column is wrong. So expenditures year to date through November show a surplus when compared to year to date revenues from last year. I'm sorry, when compared to, wait a minute, what did I put there? Year to date through November. So surplus when compared to year to date. Oh yeah, year to date revenues. Yes, 109,000. Okay. I had mentioned that to you last month that we were ahead year to date on revenues versus expenditures, and we still are. The revenues year to date are 6 million. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I put the wrong numbers in here too. I think
Yeah,
I'm
you
using
have
20.
those are
I'm
the
using-
October
Yeah,
numbers.
I'm sorry. These are October numbers, so forget that. I'm sorry about that. I must have. I have the actual numbers. After I'm done going through these slides, I'll tell you what the actual ones are. But I think we're still okay. Might be a slight deficit, but forget about that slide. And that means the numbers in your agenda are also incorrect. The
That's
rest
right.
of this, though, should be correct. The taxable assessed value from the county as of December 1st increased to $385,108,553. When I gave you the preliminary budget in November, the taxable assessed value was less, 383 million plus. So that was one change that I made to the budget in revenues. That's probably the only real change in the budget in revenues. So what I'm estimating then is that the total budget that you would pass would be $6,947,738. That's higher than the one I gave you for the preliminary budget by a little under $2,000. It still represents a 1.26% decrease over the 23 budget, but there are no other significant changes in revenues. Everything else seems to be correct, at least as far as estimates are concerned. And realize, of course, it's an estimate, it's a plan, not a guarantee, but this is probably in line with exactly what we've been doing year to date in 2023 and taking other things into account. So the only change in revenue from the preliminary budget is that the taxable assessed value increased as far as the county was concerned. And that fits with all the different changes I've been getting from the county as appeals have gone through. Does anybody have any questions about revenues? That's the only major change.
And Steve, you did reflect the revised fees in the revised resolution in these fee revenues. Is that correct?
Say that again. No, I did what?
You reflected the revised fees in the revenue section for fees.
Yeah, yes, as best as I could.
This is
Yeah.
the ones that we just looked at.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Now in expenditures, there were some other changes that were made. The salaries and administration increased slightly because I had a request to have a temporary part-time employee who could assist with the asset management system for a few months. It did not increase significantly, just went up a couple $1,000. But it did increase in that section. However, in state aid pension, the non-uniform decreased significantly. The non-uniform MMO, which I sent to you in the emails. I think Allison also sent you emails a couple weeks ago, and I just resent them yesterday or today. I forget when. But in any case, yeah, Mock and Hop redid the valuation. And I also sent you copies of both the police and the non-uniform valuation estimates from them. Basically, the police did go up slightly, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the non-uniform went down significantly from 60 some thousand to 8,000 as far as our anticipated amount that we have to pay next year for pension. They did this because they used the 2022 valuations, which were higher. They didn't need to use the amortization tables they normally use to try to rein in some of the ages, the outstanding ages of people who and how much longer they have before retirement and things like that. So that means that essentially the defined benefit portion, which is the non-uniform public works related pension, is overfunded, and they were therefore able to tell us that the MMO should go down to 8,000 plus. Now, again, I sent you all that information separately. I know it's complicated and all that, but that's a positive thing. So not only did our tax base increase slightly for real estate under revenues, but we save money here because in the budget because of this valuation change. Okay.
Steve, this is also part of the 5-year smoothing where they said they had some expensive years falling off.
Right.
As we move forward, and that also helped to lower this whole thing.
Right. And this is a good news for this year too, because don't forget, we had been banking some pension money based on a previous allowance where we were able to just take 75% of our total requirement and fund just 75%. But at the same time, we had put in savings about 25%. We're only able to do that for 4 years, and that's long past. So I think anything that's left in pension reserve is either coming out this year or will come out in 2024. There won't be any reserves. This is good news that this has happened. I did add a small amount of money under public works garage fire alarm. There's a new line item there, 01409,490. It's like $600 some dollars was added. Police department changes included 2 things. That state aid pension plan that I mentioned before, theirs did go up slightly from what I had in the preliminary budget. At the same time, the new vehicle purchase line item, I doubled because you are getting that new EV. We've gotten that new EV police vehicle, and you're borrowing from the building fund And to repay that, I doubled the amount that was in there so that you could start repaying that to the fund next year. And then you can string that out over however many years you want to use to repay that. But that's what that line item, that's why that line item went up twice, doubled, in other words. Park security also was added to cover camera costs. That's a few $100s as well. It's not significant, but we did add that line item so we could have that on record. And then under tree service, you'll note that I keep a line item there for pruning and removal. That's because I need to be able to still refer to that temporarily. Eventually in future budgets, those two will be removed since all that is under tree maintenance. But right now, those two line items are in there because there's numbers showing up in one or both. And so it's just as easier to keep it there to show that, but we're not budgeting anything separately for pruning or removal. All that's is being covered under the tree maintenance line item 01455-371.
Which is $128,000 in the budget. Is that correct?
I don't have that in front of me now because I have this slide up. So
Oh,
if I
okay.
go,
I think that's what it is. So that covers pruning and removal. Does it also cover replacement? Planting
that's up to
trees
you.
is a separate. Planting trees has only $1,000 in it.
Yeah, that's up to you as far as how you handle that. I mean, that's up to council.
All right. Are there any comments or questions about that? We have $128,000 in for tree maintenance, which includes removal and pruning, and $1,000 in for tree planting, which I presume is replacement.
You don't, to be honest, you actually, you don't have enough money in tree maintenance to service all borough trees right now.
I understand that.
I mean,
That,
you're way
that was
under.
that was my question. I mean, Stephen, well, do you have any way of assessing what percentage? Are we at 50% coverage, 25% coverage?
I'd feel better if we had a regular arborist like when Ted was here. He had a better handle on it. I would say we were probably maybe at that time 75 or 80% coverage. But it's gotten, worse, especially as some of these other trees have come down for storms, etc. I honestly don't know. I mean, you would need maybe when we get this new tree RFP handled and have somebody that is a regular arborist that we can use to call on, can have a better idea. But I mean, I would say maybe 50%, just ballparking it. Anybody else have any?
Mr. Watkins had hand up.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Watkins had hand up.
Oh,
No, the question was already asked.
Okay.
okay. We also added, if you recall, the Garden Club requested $10,000. We added that to a new line item under tree service 455-417. That's the Forest Hills Garden Club, of course, not the late bloomers, but we put that there because there are other gardening issues in numbers in that section. So we thought it fit best there. And then under miscellaneous expenses, I reduced the Edgewood Library slightly because you had requested I do that to transfer money into the Garden Club donation, because likely if the RAD money is increased, you're going to give some of that to the library next year, and that will help to make up for that decrease. I did increase the budget reserve slightly, mainly because that's gone down a little bit now that we've moved money, and you need to maintain it.
Yep.
So those are the things that were used to change the miscellaneous expenses. I did not give you the other budgets because they did not change from the preliminary budget. These numbers that were in the preliminary budget for each of these is all the same. The only thing I'm not showing right now, if you recall, is the corrective action budget. That's going to remain open pending council discussion with the borough engineer. You're going to be considering sewer fees there, etc., as well as how to space out some of the spending. And so you really need to talk more with the engineer and LSSE will be available to you in early part of 2024. I did verify with Mr. Corbel that the only budget that you're required to approve is the general fund. So you can continue to adjust these other budgets, including, of course, the corrective action budget. So I will not probably even show that on the agenda, or I'll just show it as to be determined on the agenda whenever you approve, hopefully, a final budget. So again, this final draft I gave you is what I recommend that you approve on the 13th. And I don't know if anybody has any questions for me about any of that stuff there, or if you want me to
Any
take a look
questions or
at the
comments?
spreadsheets that I gave you. Is
I
there-
had a question. The senior center is going to be zeroed out. It is zeroed out in this budget. Are we pretty certain that we will have a closing sometime in our future? That we can, do we have a date on that?
Steve Corbel would have to tell you that. I'm assuming he's
No information.
optimistic that he's not able to attend tonight.
Okay,
So
all right. All right, because that takes a good bit out of the budget, not a lot anymore, but and I wanted to ask you about money that is remaining as carryover from 2023 into the 2024 budget. Do we have an estimate of what that will be
for
as carryover?
corrective action,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, right now we're
no, for the regular general fund. We don't draw
No.
all these accounts down to zero at the end of the year, right? I mean,
No, I don't have an estimate for that now.
okay,
I mean,
right.
like I said, you could still run a deficit, a slight. I just don't think, based on that cash flow that we talked about earlier, that it will be significant. But you still could run a deficit, or you could have a slight surplus. I don't know. Usually, what happens with that is that goes into what the auditors call the fund balance, and that money is there. When you look at those accounts that the treasurer shows you in
Right.
her treasury report, a lot of those were there because of the fund balances that were carried over from year to year. But
Okay.
most of them come from the general fund. Generally.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions regarding the budget at this time? Seeing none.
All right, then I have one more item.
Yep.
I'm not sure about the audit services bids. You did ask us to check references, and Annette Dietz did a great job checking them. I did provide that to you. Mr. Corbel said you can discuss that in public, not exec session, if you want to, as long as you don't refer to specific people. And unfortunately, I don't know if, I mean, we generally have positive from all of the companies that were represented there. I did understand from some people who also told us that the more inexpensive company can be late. That's something we've experienced with the current auditor, who, by the way, for some reason didn't bid. So the one that is less expensive, some people said they're good, but they also can be very late on getting you audits and numbers. So I'm not sure where you want to go with that. If you want to discuss that tonight, or you want to wait until next week and discuss it in exec session, that's really up to you.
I think Mr. Oboldinger wanted to be involved with that discussion, and so I would like to defer that to the executive session if we can.
Okay.
Would that be all right?
Yep.
Anyone else?
I'm done
Their
then.
preference? Okay. We have under the second item of the committee business, we have a Siemens invoice, which I believe was given to you as an attachment. This is also a draw on the escrow fund, and it does not exceed the revenues available. We have verified that the work that was indicated there has been completed. Does anyone have any objection to sending that invoice for approval? Hearing none, seeing none. Mr. Morris, will you put that please on the agenda for the 13th?
Sure.
All right. We have a number of engineers' reports. with contracts awarded for, and I believe we discussed almost all of these in borough property already, so there are no actions other than to verify the bids that were sent and agree to those if there are any objections to any of those. Yeah, Steve.
Well, you would ask them to show you the motions they were going to
Yeah,
recommend approving. I honestly don't know if all of those are what you are looking for, because I haven't been involved in that. I honestly don't know what whether the costs are in line with what you're looking for. So I mean, whether I put those motions on there or not depend on what you tell me tonight.
hey, Barb, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, we've talked about all of these. It doesn't look to me clear from here, but this is all the renovations on the Westinghouse Lodge. As you see, the ones already awarded, but those ones for consideration, they're all for all the interior work, the bathrooms, taking down the fireplace, the electrical, the plumbing. We haven't talked about, well, we did slightly about the painting that'll have to come out. But then also we have a quote to fix the pavilion. Now, according to Mr. Brett, some of those posts are rotted and there needs to have some attention paid to the brickwork. Now, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Is that in the budget that we have for this project, Barb?
I don't know, because I thought we were going to get figures that gave all the amounts for everything.
And I don't see those on this sheet, and I'm not sure in the mountain of paper that we got this afternoon whether that included numbers for these consideration motions.
Well, also, I don't know why the band shell estimate would be included on this.
No, it should be, yeah.
Yeah, that's for the FHCA, not for the borough.
That's why I put it on under committee of the whole.
Okay.
That's all I had, thank you. Unless
So
anyone had any
would you
questions.
tell me that these 5 motions plus the one on the roof replacement for the pavilion all go on the agenda for the 13th, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And Barb, do we have funds to cover this at the amount that is in the ARPA money and the sources that we had cited, Mr. Morris, for the funding of the Westinghouse Lodge? This is all within that.
Well, it's close. I mean, the problem I have is that the only problem I have is I'm not 100% sure what is still outstanding that has to be paid. And that's the reason why I say it's close. But if you recall last week for borough property, I looked at the treasury report numbers and looked at what was left in ARPA, what was left in the bond issue, what was left in the Costa grant, and the fact that we're going to get the money from the senior center is going to go to this. If that's the case, there was a total of $678,000 plus available. So assuming there's no other outstanding bills that I don't know about, this is the, I'm not saying LSSE is doing this, but this is the problem I've had in the past with engineers where all of a sudden a bill comes that they've approved and we didn't have any idea that it was still outstanding or that they were going to send it to us at a particular point in time. So as long as that's the case.
Does this include LSSE costs for doing the engineering on this, or are these just the out contracting?
I don't know what they.
In other words, may we get a bill in December covering LSSE expenses for the engineering services that would be in excess of the money that we have in hand?
You may, depending on how those contracts were bid, and since they handled it, sometimes they include in their engineering fees when they're doing a bid, but I don't know if that was the case.
What they've been giving us are invoices that include work on preparing bids and preparing documents. And those have been coming in on the average 35, 45,000 a month. And so that's why I'm asking if they have included in that 678,000 sufficient money to cover engineering costs should they come in at that level of expense for these.
If you're asking me, I don't know.
All right. Well, I guess I'll call them and find out how they bill for this sort of thing. Otherwise, pending verification that we have the 678,000. If you could just double check those numbers, I
Well,
think it'd be fine to put these on.
That's not their numbers. That's my numbers.
I
from
know,
talking to
that's your
Allison.
numbers. Your numbers,
that's-
the numbers that are added up here. These don't, I'm gonna check it again, but they don't add up to 678,000 right here. So I think we should be okay to put all these motions on for action.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I did ask them to clarify some stuff. Unfortunately, Mr. Brett's away. Mr. Wingrove was out at another municipality the last day or two. So I didn't get a solid answer on some of that stuff either. But as far as, you know, like whether their engineering fees and things like that would be included, that I can't tell you.
Okay. And we don't have any estimates or contract pending for the exterior overhang and the painting exterior, so we won't be acting on that. And I think the pavilion, I would like to defer that because we may be able to get a parks amenities grant for that kind of work. I'd like to check and see if there are grant funds available for the park pavilion repairs. Those are not critical to the operation of the Westinghouse Lodge in principle. And I think we can look at whether we might have another source of funding to cover that as a park amenity, if that would be okay.
Does anybody have any
Do you have a
objection to
problem with that, Barb, if we look into that one a little bit?
Would you provide a little more detail on that, what you were referring to?
Well, there are a number of DEP grant awards that were just posted regarding park amenities, park improvements, and this would qualify, I believe, but I haven't had a chance to check that. And if we can get a $25,000 grant to help defer this cost for replacing the pavilion, that might be worth looking into before we send out a contract for it, given that we don't. Do we have a bid on this one?
Yes.
S&M Industries, yeah.
Well, if Mr. Marco is correct, if you are going to go for a grant, you don't want to start anything because you won't be able to cover that funding with grant money then.
Oh, I guess what I
So-
want to say, Steve, is if you can assure me that the 678,000 is actually there and sufficient for all of these, including the pavilion roof, then we can do the pavilion roof too. And just, you know, we don't have numbers for the exterior overhead replacement and painting. But if we have information that will let us know that we have the 678 and that covers all of this, then I would be comfortable putting that forward. So I
Okay.
really need you to verify that information before we put it on for the 13th.
Well, I would like to have this on the agenda because if we start applying for a grant now, where the Westinghouse Lodge is closed now, but it's going to open in like 5 months.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
no
that's
way
right.
we're going to get bids,
You're right. You're right.
you know. So I'd like to just go forward with this now if we could.
All
If
right.
you look on your screen, the thing I just grayed out here on this treasurer's report is what I was talking about last week under borough property. And from the ARPA funds that were remaining, we used 129,000 plus for sewer regionalization, which is not done yet, but which we're going to include under corrective action rather than take from ARPA. And we used 194,000 plus for the roof and railing at the lodge. That leaves 327,000 plus. And then the bond issue has remaining 160,000. There's a grant from Senator Costa for 75. That totals 562,000. The senior center sale is supposed to be around 116,000. That's where the 678,000 comes from. Now, this assumes again that I have all the bills already that have been incurred, and we've paid them. If there's something else that's coming in December that we don't know about, then, you know, that would take some of that money away from this. But that's, after talking with Allison, that's what I have as the best estimate. Everybody clear on that?
Okay, well,
Everybody
if I
okay?
I just added up all of these contracts, and then they come up to 502,159, including the pavilion. So I think we should be okay.
Okay. So I'll put them all on for a vote.
Okay, unless my math is wrong and somebody can check it for me, but I think that's right. I
So
just
we're not,
added
and we're not deferring the pavilion, correct? That's going to be a vote too.
including the 33, yeah, I included
Yeah, okay.
33,700
All right.
for the pavilion. It
Okay.
comes out to 520 something.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
502. All right. All right, so all those motions will be prepared for the December 13th agenda. We have a recommendation from the engineer to
I'm
advertise.
sorry, Vice President DeMarco,
Yeah.
can I interrupt?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Further down, there is a playground estimate that was also for the Westinghouse Lodge. Did we want to talk about that now since we're
At the
talking
same
about
time.
the finance?
Yeah, and there were pictures attached to that. Let me see where that went.
I just
This-
wanted to make sure we had enough money to get that on the agenda for next week.
Yeah, let me see what that was. Do you remember the amount in there? I can't open this document right now.
It was
I-
like 53 something.
Yeah. Well,
It
if this
included the pad and everything.
yeah, if this all came up to 502, we have 678 in Mr. Morris's calculation, there should be sufficient to do that. I have too many documents here. I can't open it. It's I remember he sent it and it had pictures on it of the playground equipment that would go in the Westinghouse Lodge, and it was I don't remember the amount, but if it was in the 50,000, that should
Yeah.
fit that amount.
I think Ms. Martin's correct. Unfortunately, because I'm now in the Zoom thing, I can't get my
So
email to load that had that on there, but I believe it was like 53.
740.
Thank you.
54. Okay.
740.
Okay, so we should be able to fit that in there if those numbers that you've given us on the estimated amounts are correct.
Thank you.
All right, so that motion should also go forward. And now the Avenue A Ardmore storm sewer collapse. Our engineer is recommending that we make a motion to prepare and advertise the design and specifications for an award in February. And I know Dave DeJoya has already talked to them about coordinating the work so that it doesn't interfere with the step installation. They will probably defer the installation of the steps until this work is finished, but the demolition of the existing steps can occur at any time. So if they need to remove those in order to do this repair, which I think we need to pursue expeditiously. Now, Steve, I have a concern. We don't know what the cost of this is. Is that correct?
Right.
We have no idea.
Well, we have an estimate that they gave us, but I mean, I don't, that was ballpark to actually get the bid in.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to have to look at some contingency fund, because this is not in our regionalization budget, and I'm not sure it would have to come out of the corrective action, I presume, because that's a storm overflow issue that is addressed here.
Yes, they estimated last week when I gave you that $300,000.
Yeah.
That was just a ballpark estimate for that cost. That would be in corrective action too, once you settle it, once you I mean, there, just because you haven't settled the budget doesn't mean there's not money there.
Right.
It's just you haven't decided how it's going to be allocated and whether or not you need more by raising the fee. So
Okay.
that's something you have to talk to the engineer about further.
And we will need to have that determined before we can set the sewer fee or make whatever adjustments we're going to do to that budget. So that will have to go over to January. But I would like to authorize the issuing of the design RFP at this time because we need to address that and hope we don't get any serious disasters in the interim over the winter in that area because it could take that whole road out.
So I
No.
can put that on the 13th, if that's
Yes,
okay with
please.
everyone.
Yes, please.
Okay.
All right. And then the last item that I have is the renewal of the energy services agreement that we have had for renewable energy, and it's up for renewal. I have reviewed it, and I think we should just continue to renew that joint agreement. Did anyone have any questions about that? Again, I can't pull it up on my screen right now because I have too many documents open.
Does that require a vote?
I don't believe so because it's a renewal of a contract. And
Okay.
I don't believe it.
That's
it's-
probably okay.
Yeah, if you ask Mr. Corbel if we need to vote on it, but I think it's just a renewal of a contract that we have for our electricity service, our electricity supplier to be a renewable energy supplier. And we're in a consortium for the price, the Western Pennsylvania Joint Consortium. So anyone who wants to track work on that, Connect is involved in the negotiations on that for the power supply for the participating municipalities. It's led by the city of Pittsburgh. Okay, I think that's everything I have under this.
Nothing else for finance?
I have nothing else that I can find on this agenda.
Okay.
So I think we're done with this. Does anyone else have any comments for the good of the order? I would just like to say one thing at this time. I think you need to consider carefully in the next year or maybe the year after for sure to adjust the revenue increase in the manner of a millage increase. We've had several areas of cost increases, and there are many of them that we're going to have more and more difficulty absorbing through the fee structure. And I think it would behoove us to do a small incremental increase for the next couple of years rather than wait until we need to do a large jump. So just under advisement. And at that point, I will adjourn the Finance Committee meeting. Mr. Morse, we're adjourned.
Okay. I'm ready with committee of the whole, if you're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
A manager's update. This list is the same list I had for end of the year stuff at Ops and Policy last week rather. I just repeated here so everyone sees it. The only thing I may not have mentioned last week is the police pension contribution. If you recall, every year we ask Mock and Hop to verify that the police should be putting in 5% toward the pension. And once again, they did send us that letter. I believe you were all copied on it about a month or two ago. So there is a resolution that would be approved on December 13th to approve that 5%. Boy, I'm having trouble finding words right now. That 5% money that's put to come from the police. If there's no objection, I'll have that as a motion for that resolution. And the other stuff that I have, you can read. There's nothing really unusual there. So I'm finished with my report.
So we are not doing a new tax increase, so we don't need a tax ordinance
No.
or a TAN approval.
Well, you have a resolution to do that. Mr. Corbel said it's okay if I rewrite last year's resolution, so I'll probably do that rather
Okay,
than have him do it, and so we have that pension resolution, the tax resolution, approval of the new budget, and the fee resolution would all be on the agenda.
okay.
That's all I have.
We have no solicitor's report.
He just showed up here. I'm not sure if he has anything. I just saw him.
Oh.
Yeah, he popped on here now.
Oh. So, Mr. Corbel, are you present? Do you have any report for us this evening?
I am present.
Hi.
Hi, I just wrapped up my bargaining session here with one of my other clients, and don't have anything really on from a report perspective unless anybody had any questions. I do know that there was a request for me to modify the rental inspection ordinance that came from the last meeting, and I can do that. I just need to speak to somebody, whomever it is, just about what those parameters are that council has agreed to. And I don't know, is that still coming from you, Mr. Bayoki, or somebody else?
I brought it up, so I mean, we can have a discussion if you like.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that, and so we can get the ball rolling on our end.
Okay.
Super.
And do you have any insight on the closing on the senior center?
It's contingent upon the zoning change that's on the agenda for next week. And if that passes, then all the contingencies have been met, and I'd like it to close by the end of the year. And I've made that known. I also asked them if they wanted to, if y'all remember, I asked you all if you were interested in potentially closing and then holding all the documents in escrow until this occurred, and they were not interested in doing that. So,
Okay.
I see Mr. Morse.
Is there any benefit to any members of council going to the zoning hearing and pleading our case?
I don't think so. We'll be there to let them know that's where council stands.
All right. Well, then the urgency of this situation, because this is contingent, a number of things are, contingent on using that funding for other matters. So,
Yes.
okay.
See, Mr. Morse has his hand raised.
Yes, Mr. Morris.
Yeah, the only, I just wanted to ask Mr. Corbel if he would let me know of any motions he wants to put on there, including if the small games a chance should come on there, or any other motions other than the ones we mentioned already, like the tax resolution and the fee resolution, et cetera. If you have anything else, you can just let me know. I'll be getting a draft out, I hope, by Friday, because I'm not here on Monday.
Okay.
So, okay, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I think we could probably use a motion on the rental inspection changes authorizing me to prepare and advertise if that wasn't already going to be on the draft. Oh, and the other thing we have to decide is if you all wanted somebody from my office at the meeting next week, because that's that's the standard Aspinwall meeting. And so I have, they want me there, so I have to go. That's their meeting night, and you guys moved up a week because of the holiday. So if you want somebody, let me know. I can have somebody. I think I can have somebody there. So whoever wants to come in, Marcus lets me know, or Steve. You all just let Steve know, and we can go, or Mr. Lawrence or whomever.
Okay, Mr. Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think Marcus requested that we did have someone in attendance for that meeting.
Okay. Yep. Then I will endeavor to.
And the executive session is at 6:30 if they need to be present for that.
Yeah, they probably should be.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I think that's all I have, unless somebody has a question.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Good seeing y'all. And and I probably won't see you, so have a great holiday and Happy New Year too.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Okay. There's an attached band shell proposal for discussion. This,
Well,
Mr. Morris, I believe this should be forwarded to the Forest Hills Community Alliance.
Sure. I didn't know if you wanted to see it and have any discussion on it. That's why I put it on there. But if you're okay with it, I think it already did actually go to them, but I'll double check to make sure.
Yeah, we have no, I mean, I'm hoping they also pay for the LSSE work that was done on this matter and that they're not billing that time to us, because that should go with this work to them. If you could verify that for me, that would be great.
Yeah, that money is the Forest Hills Community Alliance is paying for all the
Right.
engineering related work
Right.
associated with the sound, with the band shell, sorry.
Right. Okay, good. Thanks, Frank. All right, Ms. Martin requested a discussion on the asset management threshold. Would you like to?
I think
discuss
Mr.
that?
Bioki had his hand up before
Oh,
me.
okay. Oh, I can't see his hand against his backdrop. Hello. Thank you, Angela. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Marco. Along the lines of the band shell estimate, there would be costs associated with the excavation or the clearing of that area, so the preparation of that area. I didn't see that included in the estimate.
Oh, as well as the fencing.
Yes.
All right. Well, should we communicate that to the engineers?
Okay,
To make an
I can do that.
addition?
It doesn't include fencing. What was the other thing? I'm sorry.
Excavation of the foundation.
Excavation. foundation.
Site prep.
Well, that should be the FHCA. That's their purview.
That should be, that's what I'm saying. That
Yeah,
should
I was just about to say, so I think the FHCA needs to discuss that at their next meeting.
Yeah.
At which point, we'll bring up what we find to be missing as part of the overall estimate. Right, it might be that the thing isn't all inclusive. I'm not sure. We just need to validate that. And then we'll but I mean, I don't think that's for council to kind of run down.
Right. Good. Okay, Mr. Bioki, you had an issue with traffic safety at Dunkin' Donuts on Fillmore Road.
I wanted to talk about the asset management.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just briefly, since we are going to be starting the process where we have started already, but we're getting in more that we're going to start managing our tangible assets, such as our buildings, the vehicles, equipment, office furniture, etc., software. And why we're doing that is a lot of this tracking will help for a work order system that we hope to get into place instead of what we have now. Additionally, an inventory system. It's going to organize our assets and cut down on this. Well, I don't know where things are. But what I needed to get from someone is any kind of idea on a threshold amount. Of course, we're going to be tracking our large equipment, our vehicles. But when it comes to things like office equipment, what do we have any idea? I know the computer equipment, we're looking at monitors and all that. I'd like to actually include all of that in, all of our computer equipment. But when it comes to things like office supplies, Mr. Morris had mentioned shovels, things that Public Works use. I don't think it's necessary to track all of that, but I just wondered if anybody had any kind of a dollar amount in mind that would help us with this.
Jack, do you have your hand up, or is that from before?
That's
Mr.
from
Lawrence?
before.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Do you want to just do an arbitrary number of anything over $1,000? Be tracked?
So can I ask two quick questions? I guess the first one is, are you asking for, Barb, a ballpark price on what it would cost to kind of actually run an asset management software?
No,
Or
I'm
like
sorry.
what's the threshold to inventory?
Yeah, what would be the lowest cost possible price that we would want to start tracking? We don't want to track the cost of paper.
Okay.
Small items. I'm looking like
Yep.
$400,
Larger items. Yep, I get
500.
it. And then can I ask one follow-up question? And this is more directed at Steve Morris, but I believe that we actually, I thought we did have an inventory management tracking system in place. I remember going through this exercise some years back. Or am I imagining that?
What we had was a company called Industrial Appraisal that did that for us so that we would have it for insurance purposes. And council decided to stop using them around 2015 or 16.
Okay.
I'm not sure. So
Sorry about that then. Okay, my apologies. I thought that was still in.
Well,
Anyways,
this
that's fine.
This would also be useful for depreciation computations and things of that nature. So I think it would be helpful.
Yep. No, I get that. I mean, Steve, do you have an idea of like what our peers would use? I mean, is there a minimum threshold? I would assume anything below $250 or $500.
never discussed it with anybody, but that's, I mean, you can get to an absurd, including every little item. I mean,
Sure.
that's the problem. So, but I've never heard that anybody else actually using it. So I'd have to check. I'm not saying they don't. I just have not talked to anybody else.
Okay, so we thinking $500?
It depends. Like I mean, like if I'm just thinking about like Public Works alone, right? Like
They have tools and tools.
Yeah.
right. So I mean, some of those. I mean, a hammer drill's $250. Do we want that on the inventory management? I don't think we would want that to go missing or not be able to account for it, right? So I think maybe 250 would be an appropriate threshold, and then maybe have Steve maybe talk to a few of his peers and kind of understand, is there an industry standard for a threshold? And if we need to, we can revise.
I think Dormont did this back a little way. If you want to check with them.
Well, I like 250. That's a nice sound to it. Well, it helps out. I have no idea how much these drills and things cost. So
Sure.
I just was thinking like weed whackers,
Yeah.
Hammers. We don't want to track those maybe, but if anybody has any objections to the 250, and Mr. Morris, if you could find any additional information, that would be great.
Excuse me.
Okay.
The only thing I would like to add is someplace along the way, we may find exceptions to that rule because of some unusual value to a piece of equipment, even though it's maybe a lower price, but it may have some other intrinsic higher value for some reason or another that we might want to track.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, is that it? Good. Thanks. All right, now Mr. Baiocchi with the Fillmore Road traffic safety.
Yeah, thank you. I know this has been a recurring item that comes up periodically, but there have been some complaints that I've received from some residents. The entrance, there are two entrances to that location at Dunkin' Donuts. One is on Ardmore Boulevard, and one is immediately after the turn on Fillmore. That particular entrance has been creating a considerable amount of problems because either cars are backing up when they're turning off of Ardmore to get in there. Why they don't go in at the Ardmore entrance is something I can't understand. But anyway, that is backing up. We also have cars that are continuing to exit onto Fillmore from through the entrance side of things, even though they're delimiters and they can't get across anyway. So I'm merely throwing this out. I think maybe we want to look at
either closing off that entrance altogether or doing something else to minimize the traffic that's going into that area. It's probably something that maybe we need to talk to Mr. Corbel about, since that's already been established as an entrance and exit. And I don't know what our recourse is trying to change that. So I'm just mentioning it here. I think it's worth some additional discussion.
Mr. Corbel, do you have any comment on this matter at this time?
I think it would be a beautiful topic for executive session.
Okay. We shall put that on that agenda. If you would speak to the chair about that, Mr. Paoki, then we can raise it at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, fines related to inspections and violations, and that is also your agenda item.
Yeah, we already discussed that. That was
under the fee
the
resolution.
yes.
Good. And the police reports are attached to our agenda. Is there any comment on any of those? It seemed unremarkable. Frank, do you have any comment on the police report?
No, it's been fairly quiet. You know, it's kind of standard stuff, right? Nothing kind of crazy popping up.
Yeah.
We have been, I mean, as everybody on council, I think, is aware, right? We've been stepping up aggressive driving campaigns on the boulevard. I also do think that the placement of, I guess, speed awareness trailers has done a nice job of slowing the folks down. And then, as you know, our department just took delivery of our first EV. We're in the process of getting that outfitted and, I guess, equipped, so that, you know, we can start using that on special details like traffic and like, I guess, vehicle safety enforcement, that kind of stuff. So just as an FYI, as it kind of touches up with this, I spoke with State Rep Abigail Salisbury on Saturday evening.
Yep.
And I think Patty was there for part
Yep.
of that conversation, and just spoke with her about potentially using some of her contacts to get us I guess, a deeply discounted EV charging station. Apparently she has some access to programs which would allow us to kind of procure those at a nominal, a significant discount. I believe that those charging stations run about 10 to 15 grand a piece, and she's able to get them for a few $100s a piece cost to the borough.
They were for public use in areas, in residential areas, as I understand it.
Yep.
So, I don't know if we have an inventory of where our electric vehicle plugins are in our community. I know Mr. Colella was here at a meeting and expressed an interest in having that information. I don't know if we've done anything about a way to obtain a record of where and when people have electric vehicle with chargers in their residences as a fire safety preventive matter. He was concerned about the security of firefighters going into an area where lithium batteries may be involved in a fire, which could cause explosions if you put water on it. So they would need to use an alternative suppressant if they knew it were there. So I don't know if we've done anything about that as an ordinance or a registration requirement of some sort, and also the same with a solar addition on the roof for the same reason, that if a fighter needed to go into a place where there were solar arrays on the roof, they would need to know about that for safety issues for the firefighters, glass collapsing on them, that sort of thing, ventilating the roof for fire suppression of whatever sort. So we have not addressed either of those issues as far as I know at this time.
Sounds like something for public safety.
yeah, at some point we need to, and I don't know if it goes under zoning, if we would need to have some kind of a permit required or something, I don't know. Okay, is there anything else for the good of the order tonight?
Yeah, I just go back to that request for an executive session to talk about the entrance on Fillmore. Let's, if it depends on what the president council wants to do, but if we do want to talk about that in exec session, let's push that out to at least January when Mr. Corvo would be there, because he has the personal
history.
memory.
That's true. That's true.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Right. There being nothing further on any of the other issues posted, I think we can adjourn the meeting, and I thank you all for your attention.
Good night, everyone.
Okay,
See you
bye-bye.
next Wednesday night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.